Come with us on a journey into the unknown, the unexplained, and the unbelievable. We will test your senses and challenge your beliefs. A world where science and religion clash. Or do they? You will meet real people and hear real stories, but you will not believe. You will witness strange sights and hear strange sounds, but you will not believe. This is the New England Ghost Project. Welcome to the nightmare.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our new, what number is this?
19.
19th edition of Ghost Chronicles, the broadcast. No, the video broadcast.
The video broadcast.
Video broadcast.
The live video broadcast.
Right here on EBC TV, the voice of the Bridgewater Triangle. I am Ron Kolek, your host, the gatekeeper of the realm of the unknown, the unexplained, and the unbelievable, New England's own Van Helsing. With me, of course, is the blonde librarian, Ms. Anne Kerrigan.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Ghost Chronicles-Next Generation.
19?
Number 19. Oh, wow. I never thought we'd make it this far.
That's like half the time I've been married.
I know, I was just going to say, and you know what? It's Ron and Jan's anniversary today. Yay!
Right, so I'm out with you.
Happy anniversary. There you go.
So I'm out with you. Figure that
And she's out with me. I'm sorry, Jan. Mm-hmm. Actually, she's home with her feet up and having a drink.
Really?
Whoop-de-doo.
She does that every night. If you were married to me, you'd drink every night
Yeah,
too.
probably.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But anyway, so we've got a great show, and of course, this is my anniversary, May 13th, the lucky 13.
Lucky 13.
Right.
How many years? He's going to have to
5,
take his
6,
shoes off
7,
in a minute.
8, 9, 10. What comes after 10? A lot. Let's put it that way.
A lot.
A lot. Yeah. And I think we went out 3 years before I got married too. I think. I could be wrong.
Wow. God bless her. Don't call her St. Jan for nothing, folks. I'm telling you.
It's, you know what they say, for better, for worse.
Oh, I know.
Yep.
You know, so
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's kind of like our show.
For better,
For
for
better or
worse.
for worse.
Anyway, so 19, that's pretty cool. Actually.
And they said it would never last.
Who did? You.
When we started. And now we're like, wow. We've defied the odds.
Right. I mean, we've spent tons of money on the set. We have a beautiful angel.
We've spared no expense.
Yeah, we have an angel. We have
no expense on
we
the
have
set.
actually these lovely plants that I just brought in today.
All right.
I grew them myself.
Yeah, I just want you to know that I've been trying to save the set for the last half an hour from Van Helsing. He has brought every prop out of the back room and tried to put it on the table in front of us.
I wanted to open the show with getting Sammy out here. See if we had Sammy, we could have done that.
No.
Stiff as a board, light as a feather,
no.
and you raise them up. Did you ever do? Sammy, did you ever do that?
No.
Did you ever hear of it?
No. Well, except for you.
Oh, it's like a slumber party game.
Do you remember that?
It's me?
You, yeah, you.
Yes, it's
She
like
said she don't remember.
like a lame slumber party game.
Lame?
Lame slumber party game. We're
Lame.
not doing it. We're not doing it.
So, what's the theory behind it? Do you remember how it works?
Well, everybody, one
Well, you need
person.
a victim. I mean,
You need a victim.
You need
One person lays flat on the floor.
Yep.
And all the little sleepover girls gather around the victim, and everybody puts 2 fingers underneath the victim.
Yep.
And then you
Chant.
you chant.
Yep.
And then you all convince yourselves that you are lifting the little girl off of the
What do you
floor.
mean convince? You actually can do
just
it.
by your fingertips.
You do.
Oh, you do not.
Yes, you do. Stiff
It's
as a
like
board, light as a
mass
feather.
hypnosis.
Hey, we did this
No.
at Spectral Evidence.
It's group hypnosis.
Spectral Evidence.
Really?
We actually had requests from the audience. There was like 100 people there. They wanted all the ghost hunting gear, all the ghost stuff. They wanted to do light as a feather, stiff as a board.
Was there a 13-year-old girl in the audience by chance?
I think there were a lot more than stiff boards in the audience.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay.
What?
Well, speaking of stiff as a board,
Yeah.
I think perhaps we would want to play our cemetery tripping. What do you think?
So I have a dead cat in my backyard.
Oh, What? Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad. My son had 2 cats.
Oh, yes. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and one of them died. So he came and buried it in my backyard.
Oh. Oh. So now you get a little kitty grave.
Cost him $500.
Oh my God.
That's what I charged him. I wish.
All right. Can we go to cemetery tripping now
All
that
right,
we've
if
heard
we
about
have
the
to,
dead
let's
cat?
do cemetery tripping.
All right. Please, Russ. Please,
Fine.
cemetery. Rescue me. Welcome to Cemetery Tripping, where I will feature a different cemetery in each episode that I hope you will seek out and enjoy as much as I do. As an avid taphophile, or lover of tombstones, I spend a lot of time in the local New England area in the beautiful and historic cemeteries we have here. The stones here are like no others, and I have literally thousands of pictures of the intricate and symbolic carvings found on them. You can see my pictures on Facebook by doing a search for Cemetery Tripping. Today I would like to bring you to the Hall and Dean Cemetery, which is located in Rainham, Massachusetts. I recently visited this small family cemetery with my friends, the Gravestone Girls. Although small, this burial ground is filled with some of my favorite carvings, suns. The half-sun carving, which is the one I'm talking about today, can symbolize both the beginning and the end of life. It is also a symbol of heaven and the journey to heaven. These carvings can vary depending on the stonecutter, from having no eyes, to half eyes, to whole eyes, and sometimes even including a nose. The carver, or carvers, in this area have not been identified to my knowledge. I find these carvings mostly in southeastern Massachusetts, but on occasion I might run across one in a random area. In the Hall and Dean Cemetery, which has about 25 graves total, I counted 6 suns. This is a very high percentage in one area. While many of the stones in this graveyard are weather-beaten and covered with lichen, there were still many carvings visible. One stone in particular, that of Captain Jonathan Shaw, has a sun with both eyes fully visible, and the epitaph reads, "Who died of apoplexy November 26, 1796, in ye 65th year of his age. His wife died 15 years before him with the same disorder." I always love stones that tell the story. In the 1700s, apoplexy would have referred to any sudden death that began with the loss of consciousness, especially one in which the victim died within a matter of seconds after losing consciousness. Heart attacks and strokes, or even aneurysms, would have been the most likely culprit at that time. There is one lonely soul effigy in this cemetery, and no death's heads to be found at all. The difference between these two styles of carvings are that the first is a cherubic head or lifelike face with wings, and the second is a skull with wings. If you are out and about exploring in the Rainham area, this is a great little cemetery directly off Route 138. It won't take you long to visit, but never fear, there is another cemetery directly across the street to explore. Happy cemetery tripping, my friends. And we're back.
Wow, that was so exciting.
Ron loves my cemeteries. That is a really cool cemetery, though. Nice. It's little. It's very close, to where we are.
Lots of rocks in it.
Lots of rocks. But seriously, yeah, I never find as many sun carvings anywhere as I have in that one itty-bitty cemetery.
Why is that?
Go there. I don't know. There must have just been, the thing that you see a lot of in older cemeteries is, was the carver local, and you also...
So he was the only one in town. That was all he could do.
He might have been the only game in town, but...
It was his only stencil.
Yeah. But you also want to keep up with the Joneses,
Right.
And also...
My sunstone's bigger than yours. So
right, and it's a family cemetery. So what happens is they tend to stay in that theme, Well, Dad had a son, so now Mom's buried there. Well, now the kids each have to have a son, So it just kind of carries forward.
And the son had a son.
They do Yeah.
Yeah.
They tend to stick with a theme.
That's amazing.
So, but they're my favorites.
Speaking about rocks,
Talking about rocks, okay? We would like to introduce tonight's guest, and he's big into rocks and a lot of other oddities and things like that. And we would like to welcome Derek Gunn from amazing Massachusetts.
yay!
How are you?
Hi, Anne. Hi, Ron. I'm great, thanks. I'm great.
That's
Been
awesome.
busy.
You usually have a studio audience, but they're not
I
here.
know. Nate's not here tonight. We miss
But
him.
I see
We miss
like
him.
3 or 4 ghosts sitting there.
The spirit of me.
So
But,
tell us a little bit about Mr. Gunn.
well, Derek is a friend of mine and known him for many
That's
years.
2 points against him.
Wow.
Oh, ouch.
Thanks, Ron. Nice. And has done some fascinating work with, geological stuff and other oddities in the New
Yeah,
England
it's
area.
Basically, the Bay State, I keep it kind of focused in.
Mm-hmm.
You're right, it's, obviously it's New England, but it's, just so I didn't end up in Vermont every other weekend, I decided like 20 years ago just to keep it on the Bay State. It was just a very
What if
arbitrary.
it's just like right on the border? Would you climb over?
Oh, I would. And I've been to things in like, I've been to America's Stonehenge, for example. Good
I was going to
example.
ask you that
It's-
because that's right
Yeah,
by my
yeah.
neck of the woods.
And I would never leave that out, believe me.
Okay.
It's such a great site. And I believe I'm correct in saying at one point that was part of Massachusetts. So Massachusetts was larger, had parts of Maine and
Oh,
New Hampshire back in
Massachusetts
the day.
owned Maine.
Yeah, right? So
Right.
I think even like, say, Salem, New Hampshire at one point was part of
Ooh,
Massachusetts.
I would be careful about that. If
No,
you're from Salem.
okay.
Oh,
Wow.
For
don't
when you're
mess
out of
with
town
Salem,
or
right?
rail. Yeah.
We'll
But
keep
anyways-
this side of the line now. But I mean, it's very arbitrary, especially with my stuff. A lot focuses on prehistoric enigmas. So obviously, in the prehistoric era, the time that the Native Americans and things and Vikings may be coming over, there was no demarcation of the Bay State. But just like I said, so I didn't end up in like Rutland or Vermont or really. It was a very arbitrary decision one day. I just said, I'm going to see what's in my state because I grew up in Marshfield, and there are all these towns I've never even. I mean, there's all the Florida, Massachusetts, and all that stuff out past Worcester.
Right.
That unless you go out once in a while when you're a kid, maybe with your parents, but shy of that, unless you grow up there, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff out that way that I was like, what's in Massachusetts?
So, Derek, if somebody wanted to look at some of your work, do you have a website?
I have amazingmassachusetts.com, and that's a little bit of a work in progress, I have to tell you. When you go there, you'll see a lot of neat pictures I think people find interesting. They'll probably say, wow, I didn't realize all these archaeological and geological things were so close to me. But having said that, I really want to, the next couple of months, beef up the text. There's not a lot to read. Sometimes you get a little protective about your stuff, before you put it out there in a book, say, or whatever. Not protective, but you just feel like, I don't know, I guess I shouldn't be because it's all on the internet now anyways and shared stuff. But years ago when you were writing a book or something, you kind of would
That's right.
kind of hold on to your stuff a little bit until you put it really as a package.
Right.
But I am going to work on that. And for people who've been to my site, I hope that the next time they come, there'll be new stuff. I try to add to it here or there, new sites I've been to or new
That's a
information.
hard job to do. Keep it updated.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
you guys know with your weekly stuff and all
Oh,
the stuff you do,
absolutely.
it's material. You got to fill it up with material.
So what got you started down this path of, it's like a fringe paranormal thing, I think.
Yeah.
What started you down this path of research?
There are two main things. One is, ever since I could remember, I always veered towards those kind of books in the library as a kid, even in like elementary school. I mean, when I was a kid, In Search Of was on. My parents had those little paperback Ripley's Believe It or Not books. Then, of course, in the 80s,
right.
you had the other Ripley's Believe It or Not TV show. That's incredible. All those kind of shows, I always gravitated. I think in the Dewey Decimal System, it's like 0.001. It's right in the front by computers and things. Oddities, And but what got me into the fringe archaeology is kind of a neat thing because it's kind of family-based, or it's personal. In 1987, I bought a book called The Highland Clans for my dad. You've met my dad, I think, once or twice.
Yes.
And before I wrapped it up for Christmas, I looked at a section that had the clan Gunn stuff because there was a page for the McGregors, the Keiths, the McCoy, So I went to the clan Gunn page just to read it before I wrapped it up. And down in the footnote, it said that there was a carving in Westford, Mass. that seemed to be have the shield, the coat of arms of Clan Gunn, carved on a rock in Westford, Mass. And it said in or about 1395. And I honestly thought it was a typo because it didn't make any sense to me. Just going to high school here and what we learned about normal history.
Right.
There shouldn't be any European people in 1395. I thought they meant 1895 or something, right? So in '87, I got interested in this case of the Westford Night. And to tell you the truth, I didn't immediately get up to Westford. It actually took me 5 years because in '87, I was more into music. I was into other things, heavier, you know. So in '92, I made it up to Westford. I met with Virginia Kimball, Norman Bigart, Bill Collins, some of the Westford Night Committee. And actually, I think in a sense, it was Virginia Kimball who kind of got me going about the fringe rock stuff because she said, well, Derek, you realize this isn't isolated, right? There's America's Stonehenge, there's Dighton Rock, and she named, I can't remember what she said, but she named a few things of that ilk, you know? And, okay, Dighton Rock, right, America's Stonehenge. So this, you know, this kind of where the smoke, there's fire. There seems to be a whole bunch of these kind of things. And some of them aren't that far. I mean, you know, Dighton Rock, that's not a bad jaunt from Marshall. I mean, it's not right next door, but it's not far.
Right.
It's in the same state. It's
Yeah.
not, you know, 45-minute trip or something. So I started going to some of these sites in the early 90s, around 92, 93. I was heavily into it. And of course, in 92, we had the 500th for Columbus. So I was in the local paper in Marshfield a couple times because I was doing my Prince Henry Sinclair research. And that was, you know, that was 1492. Well, we're going back down to 1398 AD.
Right.
So it's about 94 years before Columbus.
So,
Whatever.
well, they always said, well, the Vikings were here first.
Right.
Right. So is that what's behind the Westford Night?
Wait a minute. What do you mean the Vikings are here first? First, who? We don't know who was
Well, discovered.
first. I mean, they say the Phoenicians were here first.
Yeah, it gets
mean,
gets
it's all
exactly like
muddled.
that. Yeah,
Well, who
it's-
really knows?
Was it
'Cause
Irish
were we
Culdee
there?
monks?
No.
Was it Irish Culdee monks? Was it Phoenicians before that? There might even be Roman evidence in the New World,
Right.
believe it or not. And,
Interesting thing, you said Irish monks. When I first got doing the Ghost Project thing, right, we did an investigation of America's Stonehenge. In fact, we were the first group to stay on the main site overnight. And I worked with a Franciscan monk at the time, and also was a Native American who was a professor at the University of Lowell. And they came with us that time. And the Franciscan actually, we all heard this noise, and then we looked, and then he swore he saw a procession of monks climbing the hill, just
my God.
walking up the hill, not climbing, but walking up the hill.
Wow.
But just for a brief second, and then it just disappeared. It was a strange thing. There was a lot of things happening.
apparitional procession.
Yeah, procession.
And there are other cases like that, I believe. Especially the flavor of that reminds me of something you'd hear in like England or Wales or something. I think I've read cases similar to that where people have seen.
America's Stonehenge, of course, is such a mess. You used to call it Mystery Hill because it is a mystery because it was destroyed and rebuilt and not totally destroyed, but they stole rocks from it and did this, and then they put it back the way they thought it was. And a lot, really, seriously.
William Goodwin, he lifted rocks up and moved things a little.
Yeah,
bit.
so-
Plus, some of it was carted off for curbstone or something.
Yeah, a
in
lot of
Lowell,
it
for
God.
Leominster or
cellars,
How
something.
horrible
cellars
is
and
that?
houses
Yeah,
and stuff.
a good portion of it was taken away, they believe. Yeah, I've heard
That's
that.
awful.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff, even though we have something there, we don't know a lot about it. In fact, when I had the professor from the University of Lowell, he took me there on the equinox. It was in February. It was freaking freezing. And we had to be there for dawn. Okay, so he took me to this stupid stone little hut.
How cold was it at dawn?
It was cold. Stone hut. And we had to go in the hut and then lay down, and then the sunrise came up and the little beam came flying in, just like in Indiana Jones and the little staff.
Yes.
Oh, man.
The old
What I do for science.
astronomical considerations.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Was it Professor McLeod?
Yeah, absolutely.
Roger McLeod.
Yeah.
Yep. Is he alive still?
I have no clue. That
Wow.
was many, many moons ago.
Well, yeah, he was an interesting. I went on a couple field trips with him. He was a great
Yeah.
guy. I hope he is.
He stole my Magnolite, by the way.
I hope he's still alive. I think
Never
he had some
returned it.
heart condition. I hope he's still okay.
Now, we have
His son was doing his work, too.
we have a couple pictures of the Westford Night.
Okay.
Did we
Oh,
want
yeah, let's go
Yeah,
back to
we can
what's
go to
funny.
that. I just want to say, when you said the Vikings first, what's funny is, real quick little connection, the Scottish voyage of 1398, these guys were from the Orkney Islands, right above Scotland and stuff. And there's a connection with Norway there. First of all, the Highland clans, like my name, Gunn, is a Scots name, but it's actually, if you research, it goes back to like Norwegian. Like Gunnarsson, Gunnbjorn, these longer names. You've seen like Gunnarsson.
Right.
So the in a sense, the Westford Night, we say it's like a Scottish expedition, but if you look in Barry Fell's work, he calls it Norse-Scots.
Oh.
It's at the tail
Okay.
end. There's a connection. Prince Henry Sinclair was made a prince by the Queen of Norway. In fact, northern Scotland is called Sutherland. And why is the north of Scotland called Sutherland? Because it was the southernmost extremity of the Norwegian kingdom at one point. So there's a very strong
Okay.
Nordic connection to Highland clans and stuff. There's a lot of, even like I said, in my own name, there's that connection where it's tied together. So it's funny you mentioned about the Vikings because 398 years later, you have this, what's considered a Scottish voyage, but there is a connection there.
Wow.
There you go.
Wow.
And they
that's
could have, and
amazing.
maybe Prince Henry Sinclair and
Yeah.
various people knew about it because of family links and things like that.
And once again, that's all in controversy as well. It's not
Right.
as etched in stone as it is.
But you know,
all theoretical, then.
so basically the Westford Night it's something that shouldn't be there, right?
Well, if it is what
An
some people are
oddity.
claiming
Well,
it
that's
is-
not necessarily true because
No.
Well, I mean, historically. In other words,
Yeah.
if it is what some people who proponents of it claim it is, then yes, it's an archaeological anomaly. It should not theoretically be there.
Oh, we have a question from the chat room.
Oh.
And has Derek ever found evidence of simultaneous events from around history that link different countries through archaeological finds from the same time period? That's from Stephen Scott, our friend in Scotland.
Okay. Have I ever found evidence of
It's-
simultaneous events from around history that link different
We're all
countries
looking at the teleprompter.
through archaeological finds?
We can
I
come-
think
Oh,
what
yeah.
he's saying, because there are certain structures, like some of the structures that are in America's Stonehenge can be found in Europe and can be found in England as
Okay.
well. So
If that's
yeah,
okay, if
I
I'm-
think
if
that's
I'm
what he's
reading
getting
that
at.
correctly, then in
Why
other words-
Stephen Scott is Scottish, by the way,
Oh.
so he's all over you.
I like him already. No, I mean, I'm thinking, like, say, for the Upton Chamber. Now, the Upton Chamber in Upton, I believe we have a picture of that we can get to. James Mavor and Byron Dix, who wrote Manitou, felt it had strong, definite, and James Mavor, I really think knew what he was talking about. He said it had strong affinities with corbelled beehive structures in Ireland. What's funny is, and this gets into my trickster type research, there's always like some good evidence, but then there's always like a problem. And the problem is the ones in Ireland and Upton are different. They're slightly different scale. They're not. I think the ones in Ireland are bigger than the one Upton, if I have that correct.
Should we
But,
put that picture? Do we want to
could
put the
look at
picture?
Yeah, let's put up the Upton one.
Look at the
It
Upton one.
says Upton, Russ.
There's a surprise.
And
I-
this is,
I know.
And this is a great chamber now for people who are watching the show. You can go to this because it's now a town park in Upton. And
Really?
and kudos to the
Oh.
town of Upton for saving this chamber.
That's cool.
And look at
So-
the size inside there. I mean, look at
How far is
architecturally.
that for us?
I'm not sure.
There you
Upton,
go.
it's getting over towards the Worcester area and stuff. But
Okay.
it's a great. I mean, that's a
Road
great
trip.
chamber.
And now there's an actual picture, like a real picture of it, not a drawing. Is there? Do we
I
have
don't
it?
think I have the
No?
photo.
Oh, okay.
No. But I
All right.
went there in October. There was a meeting in Upton, and it was sort of an update on the research and stuff. And it's funny because the pre-Columbian Enigma type angle of the Upton Chamber is now sort of passé. Like when they went there, they went, well, there's the Irish Culdy monk thing, and it was kind of like, things come in. Well, you talk about
Culdy monk.
I'm trying to think when you were saying something earlier about things come and go with fashions. Like keep up with the Joneses with the sun symbol.
Oh,
Right,
right. Yeah.
Now, at one point, maybe 1976, it was probably very fashionable to say, see, this is Irish Culdy monks. They were here in 700 AD, and this is a good example. And now that seems sort of like, it's like almost quaint. They think maybe it's Native American or maybe it's eccentric farmer or something. But to answer that question, I think that chamber might be an example of what he's talking about. Have I seen across countries similar things that make you wonder if there's a connection there simultaneously?
Right, exactly.
Right.
And I think the Upton Chamber might be an example of that. But it's funny, like I said, there's always like a problem.
Right.
I'll give you another example. There's a thing called a Thor's hammer, right? And there are Thor's hammers. They're these little. They're probably like medallions or something, but they're found over where you'd expect them, right? Well, there were these a couple of them, 2 or 3 of them, I think, found in Connecticut. But guess what? Wrong size.
Oh.
They don't fit the pattern of. They're kind of. They look right in most senses,
Yeah.
but size-wise, there's a problem. They don't, so you wonder about these things.
See, that's the interesting thing
Those
about it.
knockoffs from China.
Those knockoffs.
That was good, Ann.
Every once in a while, Van
And you know,
Helsing.
sometimes,
Yeah.
do you guys know something? Sometimes you'll find evidence and you think it's one thing and it'll lead you a totally different direction.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Up in, I want to say in 1787, up in roughly the Malden area, they were digging for a roadway and they found a cache of Arabic coins. And so you'll find websites that say, see, the Arabs were, seafaring and stuff like that. But what you find out also is that in Scandinavia, you find caches of Arab coins, that the Vikings went into the Mediterranean
Right.
outside the Straits of Gibraltar and also through various rivers to the Black Sea type area. And you find caches of Arabic coins in Scandinavia.
Yep.
So this piece of evidence in America for early oceanic travel, it might actually be Viking, not Arab, although when you first found it, you would think,
Right.
see,
Right.
so there's so
You
many.
don't know. I mean,
Yeah, well, who knows how it got there?
Exactly.
Right?
You get
Yeah.
looted. You loot a place. You get some coins, right? Then you trade with somebody else from
Yeah.
France or something, and then they go and trade it to somebody else, and next thing you know, it's somewhere else.
Yeah.
And you say, "Oh, look, there's evidence that the Arabs were here,"
Exactly.
but not necessarily.
Now you guys know.
it's like the seven degrees of Kevin Bacon,
Exactly.
there, whatever it is.
7 degrees of. Well, it's like there was actually a Viking penny that was found in 1957 in Maine in an Indian midden, in a mound, shell mound.
Oh.
Right? So here's a pretty good evidence of contact, but people who are naysayers to transatlantic contact say it went from hands, through Inuit in Greenland, where we know the Vikings were in Greenland, and then it came down and was traded, like you said, because
That's the
people
thing, we
like to
don't
trade
know.
things. Yeah.
The interesting thing about all of this research that's being done, and not only in what you do, but also ufologists and everything else, if you watch their things, they always, like, if you've seen the ancient aliens, you must have seen on his, right? Right? It's always got to be ancient aliens. That whatever they take, they always, whatever evidence they found, it's always pointed to that way. Although there might be other alternative explanations for it, people pick what they want and
Right.
use it for their
Yeah.
proof, and which is interesting. I mean, that's why I love this stuff, because it is controversial.
Yeah.
There's what if, mystery. The word mystery, that's what it's all about. So let's go back to the Westford Night, because I've been there many times.
Okay.
And it's funny because you and I evidently know the same people. I mean,
Yeah.
first McLeod, and then Kemble from one of my first radio shows that I did on WCCM. We went and actually on Ghost Village, and we interviewed this woman for the Westford Night. We took, did you ever see the stone itself?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yep.
How was it then?
Oh, it's very hard to see. It is hard to see, yeah. I mean, it's the sword part of it you can see quite well. There's a theory that the person it was probably done with someone with a punch, in that the punch got dull. So that when he started doing, say, for example, the sword, he was doing quite well. And then there were many probably miles from the ship and probably had limited tools. And so as he started going along, okay, now my tool's kind of getting dull here, maybe I should work on the shield a little bit and the face a little. So the other theory too is that the sword is allegedly looks like it's broken in the middle, which indicates death in battle. So in 1398.
Oh, here we go. Here we got a picture
Oh, yeah,
of one of
there's
it.
a
So
picture.
picture.
It's a little squishy. Sorry.
Yeah,
folks.
it's kind of flattened out. That's okay. But maybe things turned ugly with the Native Americans. I mean, picture these. The Scots, they're pretty tough people. The Native Americans, they're tough people too, and they don't speak the same language. I mean, imagine how trying to get things across, in days when there wasn't a translator you could whip around the corner and say, hey, put this into Scots
Right.
Gaelic for me
Right,
right now.
right.
So things might have turned ugly quickly, Imagine how just one gesture or something, someone took it wrong or something. So they think that there is a theory that the Westford Knight, that individual, if he was Sir James Gunn or whoever he was, that the Westford Knight died here on Prospect Hill in Westford, and that little mark across the middle of the sword indicates death in battle.
Right.
Wow.
Now,
So,
the interesting thing about it too is that if you go see it, now I took Steve Parson when he came over last, and we went down there, and all we had was a board over it, because it's really in bad shape now. And the reason why, it's because it's on the side of a road. It's not like 50 feet from the side of the road. It's right on the
Right
side
there.
of
It
Think
is.
about all the years of all the road salt, even if they don't salt there, just from the wheels and cars and everything else.
Yeah.
And it's on a hill, so you have erosion as well.
acid rain or
Yeah,
whatever. different
acid
things.
rain, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And they found another one. They found the boat stone up there too
Yes.
as well.
Yep.
Which is
It's in the J.V.
interesting.
Fletcher Library.
Yep. They sent that to Minnesota last time I had talked to him. I don't know what the results were from when it came back from Minnesota.
Yeah, with Scott Walter and all that. Yeah, it's back, I think.
Yeah.
But I think he felt that that it was that again it's not something you carbonate, right?
Right.
You can't carbonate stone. So I think that as I recall, his conclusions was that it was fairly old, whatever that means. I mean, I think he thought that it was. And it seems to have been created in the same fashion as the Westford Knight, dot by dot. It's not carved in. When you picture carving, if I took a knife to this table, I wouldn't. But if you carve something, it's made. The Westford Knight is made. It's punch marked. It's made dot by
Wow.
dot, and so is the
took a little
boat stone.
thing.
The boat stone is
Yeah.
made dot by dot, but the boat stone's in much better shape. And
Look.
I mean, you can see it much clearer. The Westford Knight, I think it might be the winter. There's a certain time of year you can go, and when the sun's setting and you get more of a raking angle, it's a little better. If you go there like on a June day and the sun's high overhead, it's hard to
Forget
see.
about it.
Yeah.
If you take a flashlight to it at night and you get a raking angle,
Right.
or something like that, you can see detail a little better. But I mean, I don't think it was ever a full-fledged carving like the way they would do a lid on a coffin in Scotland at that time period. If you were an important person,
Right.
I think they were trying to whip out like a quick version of, they weren't going to put this guy in ice and bring him back to Orkney Island. Somebody
Yeah.
died, and at that time it was customary. And I think the Westford Knight is a genuine inscription of some sort. I mean, Scott Walter thinks it's just the sword. He doesn't see the face of the shield or anything.
Oh.
If you go to the museum there, they have a little museum you can go visit.
Yeah.
And they have a couple of photographs where they actually use dye on it and stuff, and you can see really good. In fact,
that would make sense,
I
yeah.
think I have one on Ghost Village. If you go to the Ghost Chronicles on Ghost Village on the episode, I have that photograph, and you can see it very clearly. The knight, the shield. There's another little thing, I forget what it is now though. There's something in the corner or whatever it is, but
Is it almost like a little banner or something?
I forget what it is. I really do, Derek. That was a long time ago, but
Wow.
it's an interesting thing.
Well, do you know what's wild about coincidence and about synchronicity, I should say, meaningful coincidences, is that, and I tell this to people, especially people who come from Marshfield like I do, there may be a shipwreck from this voyage. Can you imagine that?
Oh.
And it might be off of, there's possibly a shipwreck off of Brant Rock.
Oh, that would be
And
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because imagine if you could get some wood from that shipwreck and show that there was a European vessel here 600 years before. Now, the only book I've ever spotted it in is, well, he's not with us anymore, Robert Ellis Cahill, who wrote those, those little books, Bob Cahill up
Oh
in
my
Salem.
God.
You know him too? Yeah.
When I started the Ghost Project, one of the first guys I talked to was Bob Cahill.
Bob Cahill.
And Bob Cahill was the one that connected me with Brian the monk, who was the Franciscan monk, because he used to do all the
funny.
photography for his little, what was it,
Salt Box Publishers,
Yeah,
right out of his house or something.
yeah. I still have some of those.
Those books are great books.
Yeah.
Well, they're not the most scholarly book in the world in a sense. I mean, I think like if you were writing a college paper, the person might be like,
Yeah.
get a different reference maybe.
Bad
which
source.
Is, I mean, I think he was wonderful for what he did. I really do. He's almost like, to me in a sense like, who was the Flying Santa, the guy in Marshfield who Edward
Edward Snow, yeah.
Yeah.
He really wrote a lot of local stuff. I mean, thank God in a way these people got all that stuff together, put that info out. But because I wouldn't even know about the shipwreck or the shield that came. I got to tell you about the shield too. But it's from his book, New England's Ancient Mysteries, in 1993, and I was quite startled. I bought that book at America's Stonehenge. I was up there with my then wife Susan and our daughter Alexandra, and on the ride home, she was driving. I'll never forget. It almost gives me goose pimples. But I opened up the book, and it had a whole chapter. It was called "The Great Stone Knight." It was all about the Westford Knight.
Oh.
And it said that there was it said the only conceivable man-made object that's associated with this appears to have been this bronze or some kind of metallic shield that was dredged up off the shallows off of Brant Rock by a lobsterman in 1954. Well, my grandfather was a lobsterman in 1954 in Brant Rock. I mean, it just coincided. He was a lobsterman and he was a police officer. But he started the year before. In 53, he started lobstering. So he didn't remember this case at all. I was hoping maybe he knew the guy who pulled it up.
Oh, that would have been
There was a
cool.
shield.
Yeah.
It's in Cahill's book. The whereabouts are now unknown, naturally. The thing's grown legs and disappeared out of some museum or
Is
something.
this something? Did we have a picture of the shield too?
I don't think I
Or
have the
you knew.
shield.
I knew you'd sent me something. I wasn't sure if it was a shield. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I wish I should have sent that one to put up on the screen. But, you can either look at Amazing Massachusetts under Unusual Artifacts,
Okay, what do we have here?
or that's a picture of the Westford
Oh,
Knight.
that's.
Oh
the
yeah,
Westford
that's the
Knight.
sword, right?
Or you can
Yep. It's a close up of the sword.
basically go to find Bob Cahill's book, Bob Cale's book, New England's Ancient Mysteries from '93. So the shield it's around. I mean, I have it on my website if you want to see it.
Question from the chat. Do any of the carvings have inscriptions or runes, and have they been translated?
Okay, in terms of actual runes, the only strong suspect I can think of is the guy who wrote the book that, the guy who came up with baking soda, the Horsfeld, trying to think. His daughter was Cornelia. I can't think of her. It's like, I'm at a loss right now. Sorry, guys. It's like,
That's okay.
well, she found a stone. Okay, she wrote a book about it, and she was in a carriage or something, or on horseback or something, and she saw a farmer with a pile of stones, and she spotted one. It was in Weston, Mass. And she bought the stone, and she wrote a book. I think the book's called An Inscribed Stone. Her father was the guy who thought Leif Erikson was on the River Charles. You know, if you go up in Boston near the Boston Common, there's that statue of Leif Erikson. You ever seen that? He looks very young. It's very.
No, I don't think I've seen that
Okay,
one.
well, at each end of that long. It's not Newbury Street. It's like the next street over. I'm really flunking.
That's right.
Well, you know where there's that like green, not Boston Common, but when you're on one of those side streets with all the brick buildings, and
Right.
it's adjacent to Newbury Street.
Okay, not Comm Ave, no.
Well,
Yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah.
on that green, there's a statue at each end, and one of them's a very thin, kind of waifish Leif Erikson. He's kind of looking out, and it's not how I picture Leif Erikson in the typical. But anyways, there was a gentleman who was obsessed with the idea that Leif Erikson went up the River Charles. And he actually found sort of a strange stonework in it's either Watertown or Cambridge, and he wrote a book about. I think he wrote a couple of books, but his daughter actually found a runestone. I mean, to me, when I see it, what's diagnostic to me is the R has that very angular, jagged
Yeah.
part,
Yeah.
and at the end of this little phrase is that dot dot. Now, I don't, I'm very interested in runes, but I'll tell you straight up, I am not an expert at runes. But to me, the flavor of it was, wow, that looks genuine. And I mean, is that a hoax? Why would some farmer carve that right before some lady who's totally into it come by to buy it? I mean, I don't think so. I think it was a genuine.
In reality, though, I mean, there are people out there who do that type of stuff. I mean, they actually do hoaxes.
Oh, yeah.
There's quite a
That's
few
true.
of them.
Oh, yeah.
I remember watching, there's a new show out last year on the Giants, and they went and investigated because supposedly there's these giants that are everywhere.
Oh.
And they
Jim Vieira, right?
they investigated this place, and they found out that the carvings and everything were all fake. They were actually things. But so there
Well,
is out there.
it happened to Scott Walter too on a show where
Yeah.
he was in Pennsylvania, and someone showed him an inscription, and it was he could tell with his looking very closely at it that they had like. I don't know what they probably like rubbed. They tried to age it. They artificially tried to age it.
Yeah.
Right.
And Scott Walter was right on
Maybe
to
that's
that.
the one I
And
saw, I think. Maybe that might be it, yeah.
And I mean, well, that gets into, if we talk later maybe about trickster stuff, that relates to that because the fields that I'm interested in, ufology, for example, rife with hoaxes and fakery, the fringe archaeology stuff. I mean, archaeology, that people plant things in mounds supposedly, and all kind, it's gone on and on.
Right.
It drives me crazy because I'm trying to get to the bottom of truth. That's one thing I'll say about Amazing Massachusetts that, as an idea for a book or whatever, just in my own research is, the hoax stuff drives me crazy because it's like I'm trying to find definitive evidence of something, and you don't need this stuff muddling up the water.
It's the same thing in the paranormal. I mean, people
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
make all kinds of stuff up,
People make
whatever.
stuff up.
It's
We-
just the way it is, unfortunately.
We did have a shout out from the chat room that it is on Comm Ave. That
statue.
the statue that
Thank you,
you're talking about.
Comm Ave. You know what?
It's Comm Ave.
Thank you very much, whoever,
Okay.
because sometimes you're juggling things in your mind. You
Kind
can't.
of thought it might be.
Yeah, Comm Ave at the end of it, you'll see Leif Erikson and there are people who think he went up the Charles River. Someone has asked about, have there any been inscriptions that have been translated? Well, I can say this. Dighton Rock, for example, if we can look at Dighton Rock.
Oh, my God.
Dighton Rock has over something like 23 or 25 theories as to who wrote on that.
Exactly.
From
Right.
Phoenicians to the...
Oh, here we go.
Yeah,
Here's
we have
Titan Rock.
a
Dighton
few
Rock.
pictures of Dighton
Yeah, I mean, the
Rock,
Portuguese theory, the Viking, and Native American, and but everybody from Jesus to Satan has been invoked since 1680 to now. Seriously, I mean, there are theories
Yeah.
that it's the Chinese, that it's the Assyrians, and
There you go.
Yeah, and
These are old pictures.
that's a wonderful. Yeah, I love Dighton
that
Rock.
I pulled up. Yeah.
I think Dighton Rock's such a great example of the kind of thing I'm into. Really, it's just such a wonderful.
That's
You
me,
can go
the second
see
one
it.
on the left.
There's Ron.
Yeah, second
Yeah.
on the left.
Oh, that these are really early pictures,
Nice
like
vest,
Daguerre,
Ron.
these like daguerreotype type pictures or something. The thing about Dighton Rock is it's such a mishmash of lines, and people come from their own slant.
Right.
Really, they bring their own. Kind
That's
of
what I
like
was talking about
Stonehenge.
before.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
People bring their own. That was Delabar's problem with it. The only thing I find funny about Delabar is, who wrote the book Dighton Rock, and I think 1926, was that he basically spends most of the book saying that people, he was a professor of psychology, I believe, and he said most people bring their own perception sort of
Right.
prior to the thing, but then at the end, he says, well, it's a Portuguese thing from 1511, and he spots all things that confirm that.
Yeah.
So he kind of almost does what he says everyone else does.
Right,
It's
of
human
course.
nature type stuff,
And so Dighton Rock. When did they discover Dighton Rock?
Dighton Rock
what was the
goes.
circumstance?
Dighton Rock was known at least as far as 1680. I'm not sure who the very first person to see it was, but people, Reverend Danforth, very early on, people made drawings of Dighton Rock, and again talking about the sun thing and flavors and various theories come and go. There was a guy who was writing back and forth with Benjamin Franklin. And he was in France, and he was advocating that it was a Phoenician inscription. He had a whole story about, it was telling this great big tale. I don't know how he got all that out of that mishmash of lines. But then, of course, the Norse around the 1840s, those strong Viking mania going on. And so people thought it was Thorfinn, and that they could see runes in it. A lot of these ancient scripts share symbols.
Right.
An X-like figure it's in our script, right? It's in the
Right.
Latin, right? And you know how many go look in book of ancient scripts. An X-like thing is in and sometimes it's not an X sound. It could be a D or something. Or it could be a T.
Right.
And so it gets very hard to do translations. And but I think that when the person asked about have there been some translated, there have been several stones in Massachusetts and around New England translated, but is it accurate? Well, it's all a scholarly guessing game.
Right.
It's.
Did you ever think maybe it's just graffiti? Like everybody who came and saw the rock and said, "Oh, hey, they put this on the rock.
Right.
We have to leave our mark on the rock."
For
Okay.
a good time call.
Get out the. Yeah.
Well, before they plucked Dighton Rock out of the river, it was in the river until maybe '63. I bet you 1962 is carved on that.
Yeah, I know,
Someone
right?
took a penknife on a canoe. Was on a canoe.
No kidding.
I mean, Mary Loves Johnny. I mean, it's on there probably. It's on there.
Who's to say that there is? Maybe there is everything all over Dighton Rock because everybody left their mark.
Then again, maybe not.
If you take the modern graffiti out, and I'm gonna say,
Nice, Dave.
That was a good one. I'm glad.
I'm gonna say the modern stuff.
Good. I am happy.
Thanks,
The historic.
Russ.
If you take the historic stuff out,
Yep.
like someone going by with the canoe and writing 1926 or something like.
Yeah.
My opinion of Dighton Rock is that I know in the Bridgewater Triangle movie, for example, our friend Chris Pittman says he feels that those marks were made by Native Americans in the ancient past. I think there is some script on Dighton Rock. There's a series of X's. There's some things that look like almost like an upside down Y. There's some things going on around in the middle section of that panel. It was known as Dighton Writing Rock by the earliest people. So I mean, so there must have been something to that for people to name it the Dighton Writing Rock.
Because it was already on there, right?
Yeah, it was there. And the thing is, I think there's some script. My take on Dighton Rock is that it might be in some kind of ancient, I don't want to say exact language or script, but in that pan-Mediterranean, Iberic, it's in one, I think it's very ancient. I think Dighton Rock is much more ancient than 1511. It's way more ancient than that.
Okay. Wow.
And I think that there also there is a Native American component to it, where you see things that look like faces and bodies, and I wish we had a close-up of it, but there's zoomorphic. There are animal figures on there. Things looks almost like a deer, and it's made in X-ray style. There are like lines and dots in it, almost like an Aboriginal.
Wow.
So I think I feel like the strongest original components are, it's probably a Native American thing that maybe some people later, early visitors, maybe Phoenicians or something of that ilk, put some script
Additional
on there
stuff
too.
on it,
Yeah, that's, so I'm kind of doing two theories. I'm taking, everyone wants to latch on to one theory. I kind of think it's Native American plus there might be some early script. I don't think it's Norse. I don't think it's classic runes. I don't think it fits into that category.
So he mentioned actually earlier something about trickster. You want to explain what that is?
Well, we could do a whole show on that sometime too. But
Well, the reason is we are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
we're
God.
moving down.
and,
yeah.
and just we
Oh,
have
wow.
another shout out from the chat room. The woman was Cornelia
Cornelia,
Horsford.
I could not pull her last name out.
Thank
yes.
you.
Thank you, whoever just submitted that.
That is
Thank
in
you.
the chat room.
Cornelia Horsford.
Stephen
Excellent.
Scott. Thank you, Stephen.
Yes. Well, her father had money. I want to say he did something with baking soda or something. And so because he had a lot of money, he could indulge his hobbies. Wouldn't that be fun?
Wins.
And so he had this
Yeah.
obsession with Leif Erikson on the Charles. Trickster stuff. Wow, I didn't realize what time it was. I'm really fascinated by what I call trickster consciousness or the trickster archetype. Carl Jung, neo-Freudian, all around kind of interesting guy.
Right.
He wrote a lot about archetypes and he gets a lot into the trickster. Now, tricksters, how do I sum it up kind of quickly? A trickster is, in like mythology, is a figure that transcends boundaries, okay? But yet we have modern tricksters too. I think of all the way, a classic trickster would be Hermes or Mercury. And he is a god of boundaries and crossroads and things like that. But these are people that can, well, let's think of the caduceus that Hermes holds, okay? You have a staff with wings on it, which indicates sort of flight, right? He can fly, and birds fly. So you have sort of an aerial component, and then you have snakes.
A serpent, yeah.
And snakes are sort of considered symbolically subterranean creatures. They come out of holes, they're sort of lowly, they touch the earth, they live on the earth. They're quite the opposite of a bird who can fly, although there are gliding snakes. But symbolically, a bird and a snake are sort of like, and so to have them on a
Opposites,
staff, it's
yeah.
the union of opposites. It's a duality that's combined, like a yin-yang symbol.
Okay.
And the trickster figure is something that sort of transcends that. In Judeo-Christian thing, we really wouldn't have trickster figure because the trickster figure would basically be the devil, because anything that's tricking, there aren't gods that are good and bad, coming from where my personal religious background say. Or people who come from a Judeo-Christian background. To other parts of the world, they all have trickster gods. I mean, the Native Americans and the classic Greek mythology, and you go around the world, there's trickster gods up the wazoo. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. But what I'm saying about modern trickster figures, something like Felix the Cat, I think almost like Bart Simpson kind of fits in that category, or maybe Bugs Bunny. Sometimes they will go across gender. You'll see, like, for example, like Bugs Bunny will like dress up like a girl, Bugs Bunny, Or, but Hermes was like that. The priests of Hermes in the Greek temples wore like breastplates to look hermaphroditic. And in fact,
Really?
Hermaphrodite is the son of Hermes and Aphrodite.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a sort of union of opposites. But trickster consciousness, like I said, I think of, say, the ufology, that poor guy who, I think in the 50s, who saw a saucer land, right? And he deals with the aliens who have problems with the UFO or whatever. And he gets like this alien food, like these cookies from the things. And wow, God, wouldn't that be exciting, huh? I can prove to somebody that I actually dealt with the little beings, He gives it to, like, say, the Air Force. They analyze it. It's all stuff from the earth. It's like flour, and there isn't anything special, abnormal about it. It's stuff that I could get at Shaw's.
Right. Right.
So that's what I mean when I say trickster consciousness. It rears its head in everything: psychology, ufology, your paranormal, your ghost hunting things, that kind of thing. Fringe archaeology. I mean, why don't we find a really good Viking site in, say, Maine? Well, some people say because the Vikings really weren't there, but I feel like it has to do with these little. It's almost like that the world sort of works on. The trickster consciousness is sort of reality, unfortunately. And like I said, I'm a good little Catholic boy. I'm probably not supposed to think like that. But the more I study different things, the trickster thing. So I would encourage your viewers to look into trickster. Look up the trickster archetype on. Just start with maybe Wikipedia or look at some Carl Jung books. And it's in a lot of folkloric type things, mythology. And what I find interesting, we're talking about the cross-cultural things with the Vikings over here, is that when you look at trickster stuff, there'll be things like, there'll be a god in Africa, there'll be Hermes, and there'll be a god down with the Maya, and they all have the same attributes. They'll do cattle, crossroads, doorways, red and black, it's all, and I'm like, is that just human consciousness that
Right.
And why so many of the similar attributes? It's not just like an attribute or two. It's a wide range sometimes of things that they overlap on. So I'm like, and these are cultures that are separated by thousands and thousands
Yeah,
of
but they
miles.
could be just be tapping into the greater consciousness. And
Well, that's what the archetype. Right, exactly. That's what that Carl Jung said. That collective unconscious, the archetypes are. I mean, so maybe that's why it is. But it makes me feel like the phenomenon is maybe somewhat of a real phenomenon.
I mean, that's the cool thing about what you do and what we do too. And I mean, Oak Island. I mean, I love that. It's a great story.
Yeah.
What's buried there?
Yeah.
It could be anything from Shakespeare's works to Temple of
Templars,
Gold
yeah.
to there was all kinds of stuff actually. Yeah.
Well, when you talk about trickster stuff, I mean, the thing floods. It has. I mean,
Yeah.
it's big as. So, are we down to close to the end? Because
Yes, we
we
are.
never
We're
really
getting there.
touched on. If I could, I don't know if we're even going to get to it, but this month is the centennial of Orson Welles' birthday. He was born on May 6,
Oh, yeah.
1915,
Yeah.
and of course, with the ufology and stuff, you know, famous War of the Worlds
War of the
broadcast in
Worlds, yeah.
1938,
Yep.
and I don't know if it
Oh,
would
there's
probably.
Orson.
Yeah,
There's Orson.
There's
on the
Orson
screen.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He ate himself to death. Or he ate himself. One or the
Unfortunately,
other.
Well,
I don't know.
if I can do a little plug,
Yeah.
I'm doing a talk next week.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Hingham Public Library at, I want to say it's at 7 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to show, they have a monthly film series over in Hingham. They're going to show F for Fake, Orson Welles' last completed film, 1974-ish. And Orson Welles was a magician. I don't know if you guys, he was a practicing state.
No, I never
He was
knew
in
that.
the International Brotherhood of Magicians
Yeah.
Union and everything. He kept up his magic in case his film thing
Didn't work.
went out the window.
Yeah.
And but F for Fake touches upon a lot of trickster stuff. And of course, so does Orson Welles, really. The Mercury Theater on the air,
I think we can take that picture
War of the
down
Worlds. And
I like him.
yeah.
now. As much as I like Orson, we can take him down.
Do you know when I've been doing the research, everybody I talk to is under 30. Every time I say Orson Welles, they go, I think I had to read him in high school. And I say, I think you mean H.G. Wells. But of course, there's the connection there with the War of the Worlds.
That's true, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I found out in my research recently that those two guys met in 1940 in Texas, and they were on the air together.
Right,
They
right,
met
right.
on a San Antonio radio station. They were interviewed together.
Oh, that's
But Orson Welles, yeah, the movie is going to be around 7 o'clock. I think it starts at 7 o'clock next week, and there'll be a short lecture afterwards, about 20 minutes. And it's funny because Orson Welles is doing basically F for Fake is a film about a famous art forger who there's a guy making a biography of the forger, and then Orson Welles, in making the movie, finds out that the biographer is a faker himself. But the biographer's claim to fame is that he met Howard Hughes and wrote this big biography of Howard Hughes, and during the process of making the film, it comes out that the guy was a liar, had never met Howard Hughes. So Orson
kinda
Welles
cool.
does a whole film essay on the nature of truth and reality of art. It touches on so many different things. It's like, what is art and what is, is something, basically like truth and lies, but in the art world and in reality too.
And when is this going to be?
It's a week from now. It's Wednesday the 20th, 7 p.m., Hingham Public Library. And the movie they're going to show is F for Fake. They were going to show Citizen Kane, but we went with F for Fake, the last film he completed.
And you got a UFO thing going on too, right?
Yes, I do. Thank you for reminding me. In Exeter, New Hampshire, this is the 50th year of the incident at Exeter.
Ooh.
The incident at Exeter. So in September,
Ron could go to
there's going to
that.
be a whole slew of real hardcore, like heavy names like Stanton Friedman, Richard Dolan, and some of the people in the ufological field. And I just was talking to the guy. I'm going to do a talk. I'm not sure if I'm going to be in the main hall. There's going to be satellites. It's going to be all around town. It's a big year. It's a 2-day event, not a 1-day event.
Wow.
It's, I think, the 5th and 6th, if I have the dates right. It's a Saturday, Sunday thing. And it's in Exeter, New Hampshire, downtown Exeter, the town hall. And my talk is going to be, actually, I want to veer towards sort of the Carl Jung thing, the psychological. Carl Jung wrote a book about UFOs
Wow.
as modern myths seen in the sky, about psychological component of it. And so I'm going to try to go from that
Oh,
angle a
that's
little
pretty
different.
cool. Nice.
So,
Excellent.
and the other thing we didn't mention, Ann, is since I was on a couple years ago with you, but we were both in the Bridgewater Triangle
Yep.
movie. and
And Ron was in it too.
I'm sorry, and the three of us.
Inadvertently.
Don't give me that inadvertently
The three of us.
crap. I was,
And
you noticed I was in the end of it because I was the big finish of it.
Yeah.
I was the one that was chasing the girl down and beating her.
That's
That's-
right.
That's right.
active role, yes.
Yes.
But yes, Bridgewater Triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the movie seems to be doing quite well. And
Still.
Yeah.
Still, yep. I
We
actually
had,
just saw Aaron Kaju. I just saw him yesterday.
We had him on the
I
show.
did. Yes, he was on the show. And I know that it's still remaining popular and winning awards, and
Good.
Yeah.
it's right in our backyard.
Yeah.
I actually have a copy of it.
Good for you.
Yeah, I do.
Congratulations.
I actually
Those-
watched it too,
I'm glad.
which is
It's-
rare for me.
It seems to be, like I'm bumping into people who have seen it, or a
Yeah.
couple
That's
friends of mine that
interesting.
didn't know I was in it. They just happened to be there.
Yeah.
Said to be,
Yeah.
your voice came on, and my buddy Greg said, I knew it was you before I saw you. And
That's funny.
it was very exciting to be in that movie, and I thank Manny and Aaron and Kristen Good, of course, for getting me involved from the start. And
Yeah.
yeah, there's
Very successful.
so many. Yeah, it's been fun.
Well, that's
The Q&As are great afterwards. Sometimes I have real fun at those things.
Oh, yeah.
The Q&As.
Well, people, we showed it here at East Bridgewater High School, and was very well received. People loved it, and was a great night. And I think that if you live in this area, you just so many people are like, what's the Bridgewater Triangle? What is that? And
Cool.
and they see this movie, and they're like, oh my, I never knew.
Yeah.
So
I want to ask you one thing. I know we're running out of time.
Yep, we
is
are.
you saw the Westford Night. What do you think about the relationship between the Westford Night, the Newport Tower, and the what's the other stone that's in the water? Narragansett Stone.
Narragansett Runestone.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know about the Narragansett Runestone in terms of being tied to the Westford Night. They have it with the hooked X and everything.
Yeah,
and
the hooked
David
X, yeah.
Brody and Scott Walter and Scott Walter. I'm not sure about that. I do think that the Newport Tower is related to the Westford Night.
You do. Okay.
I think the Newport Tower, the Westford Night, and the shipwreck off of Brent Rock are sort of my three things that I think. And the boat stone.
It's funny you grab on that shipwreck because that's very not well known.
Oh, it's deep cut information. I
Yeah.
mean, it's only in one book, and it's on my website, and I haven't seen it. It might be in a few different websites now, just because I put it on mine. It might be out
It's
a
funny
little
how
bit.
that works, huh?
Yeah, because I noticed on
Oh,
a different thing
look.
it said a shield as evidence for
Yeah.
contact, but it's not a well-known one, that shipwreck, and it's like I said, it's a potential shipwreck. There was a rudder sticking out of the sand. The shield has since grown wings and disappeared, which would be a great piece of physical evidence. It seems to have,
If it ever
Right.
existed.
yeah.
well, we do have to wrap up. I'm sorry. I know. I could sit here and talk all night and listen to
We
all
need
his
phase 2. We
stories.
got to get to Buckaroo
I
Banzai.
know. Oh, we forgot Buckaroo Banzai.
Oh man,
I'm sorry. But
Buckaroo.
thank you so much, Derek, for coming on tonight.
There we go.
And Buckaroo Banzai, we threw it in there at the end.
How
Thank you
can
so
we
much
forget? Thank you so
for
much
coming on. It
I
was
appreciate
great.
it.
It's always fascinating to hear all your research and your stories. Check out Amazing Massachusetts, and we will see you next month, show number 20, right here.
Pirates.
On Pirates. On Pirates.
Pirates.
So,
And we will dress up.
of course, we won't pass up any excuse. So,
Exactly.
thank you for watching and listening this evening, and everybody have a great night. We'll catch you next time.
From ghoulies to ghosties, long-leggedy beasties, and things that go bump in the night. Deliver us, good Lord.